I started teaching here 30-some years ago and spent a great deal of time doing interim ministries, filling in when preachers were missing on vacation, those kinds of things. And have had a number of extended interims that lasted a year or so. And all of them felt helpful to me. I felt like I learned from them. I felt like I was making some kind of a contribution to them. But then in 1998, I got invited to come to Madison Park Christian Church and do another interim. And it became an extended interim where I was over there at least once or twice every week. I was there week after week in what turned out to be an 18-month period of time. And what I discovered in that experience was that I was not nearly as well connected to the church as I thought I was. I would have naively said that over the years of teaching here, I had done a good job of staying in touch with the local church and brought that to the classroom and was useful at helping students get ready for what the church was like. And I made this amazing discovery that it's a lot harder to do than it is to talk about. And I found myself in elders meetings and helping plan worship and looking at an extended sermon series and thinking about the church and the direction the church was going. And it was an amazing kind of experience of realizing that that actually being in the church was much better for what was going on here at the school. And I came to a conclusion, right or wrong, I came to a conclusion that for years I had been in the academy allowing the church to borrow from the academy. And there's value in that. I have no doubt that there's value in that. But in areas of ministry preparation, in the area of preaching, for example, I felt like at the end of the day, we had it backwards, that we really needed for the church to be the foundation and the source and the place, and the academy needed to borrow from the church. Not that the church would dictate what we said, but the church was the actual reason we were saying anything. And giving us the context and the content of what we needed to provide for students to prepare them. We could talk about the theory, but it's one thing to talk about doing something in a classroom. It's another thing to actually to be in a congregation and to help the leadership of that congregation and the people make the needed transitions from one idea to another, from one phase to another, from one complete approach to another. And the church provided that. The church provided me the questions to bring to the classroom. And I felt like that was among the most valuable things that ever happened to me. I think that's why I'm so excited about what we're envisioning happening here now. I know that there's been a lot of ache, heartache, grief over the fact that we feel like we're losing something. And I get that. Our family has a long history with Lincoln. I started teaching here way too many years ago. My kids grew up on this campus. I have 3 daughters, 2 of whom graduated from here, 1 who took classes from here, 2 married students from here, 2 work here. My grandson came here, graduated from here, married. We feel like Lincoln has invested enormous amounts in our family, and so we feel some of that loss. But a good friend asked me, a good friend said to me the other day, I must be sad over what was happening. And I had to be honest with him and say, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm grieved at what we're losing, of course. But this is a transition into a delightful, bountiful future. This is a chance for Lincoln to do in 2022 and following what it did in the 1940s, to meet a demand in a way that is culturally relevant and effective. I remember being in a group of people a few years ago, 20-some years ago. It was just when the churches were really beginning to call local church people to their staffs. It was becoming very prominent as kind of a large church model to just hire from within. And I remember having this conversation with people that meant they were going to be missing good theological, biblical education. And what would we do about that? And frankly, we did very little. We talked about it a lot. We just didn't do much about it. we missed a golden opportunity to make a swing at that particular moment, to shift a focus at that particular moment, to actually address a need that has been present now for at least 2 decades. Well, here we are. Desperation, whatever it is that has driven us to this particular place, awareness, recognizing that the culture has changed, the world has changed, the church has changed, demands that we make a shift that says we are now going to address what has been a growing need in the kingdom of God through the church. And that is providing what the academy needs to provide: biblical, theological, worldview education, and being there to help guide and direct some of the ministerial preparation, but leaving the ministerial preparation in the hands of those who already know what they're doing, and they're doing it well. And that was one of the things that I noticed when I went to the local church. There were people there who knew more about what was going on in that local church than I did as the expert, as the professional. We have an opportunity to make this immense contribution going forward that is not going to affect just large churches, even though that's going to be one of the primary places that our students end up being, of course, because they have the resources and the facilities and the teams to provide what our students will need. But think 5 years down the road, think 10 years down the road, when a number of students who are no longer the 22-year-old fresh out of college graduates are heading to our churches. Instead, they're the late 20s, early 30s, transition people from one career to another, who have enough life experience, who have enough business experience, work experience, family experience, that they don't walk into a church, small or large, and get treated as if they just got out of high school. They're going to bring something that the churches desperately need, and that is experience and life, and some good church experience where they have seen how things work, and mentors that they can go back to, and have human resources that they can rely on for the rest of their ministry careers. And I know there's a concern. There's been a concern voiced in social media that, well, what are we going to do about small churches? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to provide them with a new kind of leadership that they don't even yet know that they need, and they're going to have a value brought to them that they can't even begin to understand right at this moment. Is it a little while away? Yeah, it probably is. It's probably 5 years away or more. But my goodness, what they're going to get as a result of having people with experience and resources that we can't provide for them just as an institution sitting here. So I'm pondering everything that's going on, of course. I'm answering questions. I'm reading some delightful social media posts from alums who have such high regard for this place and such hope for the future. And I'm thinking about it. And I decided this morning, if somebody, excuse me, if somebody came along and said, I've got $10 million a year and I'll give it to you to keep going the way you're going, I'll make sure that this institution stays the way it is, I would vote no. I'd vote no because it's the wrong model. Not that it wasn't the right model yesterday, and not that it might not be the right model for somebody else. It's just not the right model for us. It's not the right model for the people that we serve. To keep doing the same thing is to just do what we keep telling churches not to do, and that is to get stuck in a way of doing things and not recognize that we're not an end, we're a means. Lincoln is a means to an end. And if all we do is try to figure out how to keep the means alive, it becomes the end and not the means. We're just a tool in the hands of God in His kingdom. And if we can figure out how to sharpen the tool so that it keeps accomplishing its purpose, that's a win. That's a win in anybody's book. Our concern is not the process. Our concern is the product. We just got to figure out how to get there. And I think this new model is how to get there. It's exactly what I believe we should have done 20 years ago when we first saw these things beginning to emerge. I'm glad, and I would just say I've got absolute confidence in our presidential cabinet and in our trustees that they are making the right decision at the right time. And would hope people will get on board with that and will be supportive of that and will see this through, because we're going to see great days ahead.